All right. Good evening. Good evening. What's going on, Facebook? Welcome to another episode of Keep It Real Fridays. And just for those, as people are getting ready to log in, just a little synopsis of Keep It Real Fridays and what we do on often on Friday nights these days is that we have conversations about youth and young adult related topics. Keep It Real Fridays has been in existence for about 15 years now. And so it started with a vision 15 years ago. And that vision started with the concept of bringing youth and young adults together in a non-traditional way as it pertains to a church service. And what we used to do on Keep It Real Fridays was bring youth and young adults, different churches together, different denominations together to provide a safe space for youth and young adults to have a platform to just express their relationship with God in different ways, whether it's through music, whether it's through poetry, whether it's through dance, whether it's through mime. And just all different types of authentic ways that people had the opportunity to, just express their relationship with God. Because a lot of times back when we first started, there wasn't a lot of opportunities for youth and young adults to really express themselves in their relationship with Christ, other than being on the youth usher board or being in the youth choir or something of that nature. But we wanted to try to stretch, the boundaries of what youth and young adults could do. But of course, we can't do those type of environments because of the pandemic, and we can't meet in person. So we decided to shift. And so since July, we've been doing these conversations on different Friday nights. This is our 11th conversation. And things have just been, we've just had a lot of great conversations over the last 4 or 5 months. And I'm excited this evening as we start to dig into a topic that can be, it can be an exciting topic to talk about, but it also can be a sensitive topic that we talk about. We're about to talk about money. And so I'm excited because I have a good friend of mine that's here. Yeah, that money sign. Um, So I got a good friend this evening that has joined us, and we're going to talk about we're going to talk about money, but specifically around the topic of wisdom, then wealth. And so I have a good friend of mine, Brielle Mabrey, who's joining us. And Brielle is she's an author now, and she has written the book called The Seven Figure Net Worth, and she's actually having her book release happening this Sunday. And so I've had the
Yes.
opportunity to have the chance to preview the book, and I was just like, okay, uh, our community, specifically the Black community, we have a hard time talking about money. And when I saw that,
Mm-hmm.
she rolled out this book and this concept, and I was like, we have to have a conversation about this. And so we're going to be talking about, just this journey with her book and just talking about, just money and how it's very, like, again, that exciting but sensitive topic in our community. So, Brielle, we've known each other for years, and before we went live and jumped on, we were
Yes.
trying to go back and do the history of when we first met, and it had to be something. We settled that it had to be something ministry related because we have been very tied
Yes.
to ministry through the years, and
Yes.
we share some mutual friends, and just God has allowed us to stay connected through the years. And I'm grateful that God has allowed us to stay connected, and just God has just been prospering us in different ways, and just being able to check in here and there and just say, hey, what's going on. So I'm gonna allow her to introduce herself in her own way in just a moment, but I want to invite you all that who are tuning in to engage the chat. So if you hear something that is profound, or like it just hits you, or something you're like, ouch, that hit me, or whatever it is, feel free to engage the chat, ask some questions. Feel free to post your comments in the chat. But I'm gonna allow the opportunity for Brielle to introduce herself, and then we'll jump into the conversation.
All right. Hi, everybody. So excited to be on Keep It Real Fridays. As Thomas shared, we have known each other for years, back when he was just starting out with Keep It Real Fridays. So it is absolutely my honor to be on tonight and talk about finances, abundance, all of it. So a little bit about my background. My 9 to 5 is I work in corporate America in legal technology consulting. I am also a serial entrepreneur. I love entrepreneurship. It is a passion of mine. I am a wife to an amazing husband, Nathaniel, and the mom of two inquisitive, amazing young ladies who are my absolute heart. Um, so for me, recently, I just had a burden. I to start an online course and to write a workbook. And as I started writing, I realized that I had a lot to say when it came to money. And so I ended up writing the whole book. So now I am adding to my list of titles, hats, whatever you want to call it, author. So that's just a little bit about me, and I'll share a little bit more about my story as we talk tonight.
Awesome, awesome, Bria. So let's put a pin right there because you talked about being a wife and you talked about having a family and being a serial entrepreneur. Never heard it in that way, in that fashion. How do you balance all of this, and navigating that, and as well becoming an author now?
Yeah, there's no such thing as balance. It's you figure out which balls to drop, which ones are glass and which ones are rubber. But ultimately, for me, it's number one, having a supportive husband. My husband is amazingly supportive. And if it wasn't for his support, I would not be able to do it. We absolutely support each other in different seasons. He coaches basketball. He works with the Fellowship of Christian Athletes. And so we've learned to support one another. One thing that we always say, we actually have a shirt through one of my brands that says support is a verb, right? And so that's been the number one key. Two is I try to stay in prayer constantly, like throughout the day. I'm like, Lord, please help me. And I do the things that I feel that I have a grace to do. And when I feel like the grace is lifted, I have to let it go. Because when you are operating in a season and the Lord has been like, all right, this isn't what you're supposed to do, it becomes much tougher. But when you're doing, like, you're in the center of like where He's called you to, I've just experienced an ease and a grace to get things done. So really, those are the two things that have helped me to wear multiple hats in multiple seasons, beyond just like understanding that you just can't, think at any one thing too long, right? Like you might be a really, really great mom, room parent, everything, crush it one week. And then the next week you might, not be super mom, but you're killing it at work. And it's just kind of, a transition. But the two keys is really having a supportive spouse and recognizing when you're in the grace of what God has called you to do.
Hey, man. Well, shout out to your supportive husband, and shout out to him being a basketball coach. That excites me, being a fellow basketball coach, and I didn't realize he was working with the Fellowship of Christian Athletes. So maybe I have to make a connection with him later on down the road. So shout out to basketball.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and jump into this conversation. We got this book release coming up on Sunday. Again, for those who are just joining in, the title of her book is The Seven-Figure Net Worth. Can you talk about, I know you started to talk about, how you've kind of been engaged in having conversations about money, but can you talk about your journey in writing this book? Like what inspired you? What pushed you to get to this place where you wanted to focus on this specific topic?
Yeah. So, okay. So I grew up poor, right? So, for most of my childhood, not all of my childhood. So one thing I talk about a little bit in my book is my background. So the way it started out was we were living our best life out in LA. My mom worked in the legal field. She was doing her thing. Things drastically changed, and then we moved to Mississippi. Mississippi was rough, okay? So Tom, let me ask you a question. If your toilet doesn't work, like if you can't flush the toilet, do you know how to flush the toilet without using a handle?
Man, lift up the top and go in, and that would be my answer.
No, that's plunging. That is plunging. That is different. Okay. So you can flush a toilet by, if you have a bucket next to the toilet and you fill it up with water in the bathtub and you pour it directly into the toilet bowl, then the toilet will flush. Okay. So
Mhm.
that is poverty in the United States of America. Okay. So when you live in a place where that's how you flush your toilet, I was a latchkey kid. And so we used to have this like little 2 burner stove. And there was a period in my life where the electricity got turned off. So we would have the extension cord running to the house next door. So you come home, you get your little two burner stove, you put on your ramen, right? That's poverty. Okay. So that was a part of my story. But at the same time, my mom, right, that wasn't all of our stories. Those are just snippets of our stories. But my mom was very committed to my education. So she enrolled me after a couple years in public school in Mississippi. I did private school in California, in the top private school in the city that we lived in. So I had this juxtaposition of seeing the amazing way that other people lived, and then kind of going home to our 1 bedroom apartment, that at that point was a little bit better than the one I just described. um and so it made me realize, well, there's a lot about wealth, there's a lot about finances, there's a lot that I just don't know. And so that dining room table conversation wasn't a thing in our household. We were trying to figure out what bills to pay. So when I graduated from college and then graduated from graduate school, I was like, okay, how do I do this thing? So I read all of these books as much as I could because I needed to equip myself and gave myself a strong start. So by 23, I had my condo. You probably remember this, my condo. And, I was doing really great. And then I started going back to old habits. So it has just been a very interesting ride for me. But as we finally got into, I'll call it our 30s, right? My husband and I, we started working with a financial coach. We started really saving. We paid off all of our debt, and everything just started really rolling. And all of a sudden, I realized, man, I've acquired a lot of knowledge, and there's a lot of people like me who have no clue. So I really realized that there's a lot of things like, granular details that nobody will teach you. Nobody will tell you. Nobody will sit down at a table and be like, okay, let me show you how to pick out an HSA plan. you know, if you guys have had those conversations, congrats. Maybe at the baseline, somebody may have told you how to do a budget. But a lot of the other things that are required, yeah, definitely not shared.
So thank you for that response, and also thank you, Brielle, for kind of opening it up about your testimony. So that brings me to my next question. And as you were talking about your journey growing up and going into your 20s and going into your 30s with your husband, like, why do you think it's important, or how important is it that we ought to have a relationship with money? Because you just brought out something. You said that growing up, you experienced poverty, but in your
Mm-hmm.
20s, as things started to change, but things started to go back to old habits and things of that nature. And often in the Black community, like we struggle with this relationship with money, to what you just said. Like, even our families don't want to talk about it, like like generations. It's just like when we get to money, it's so sensitive. Why do you think it's that way? Or what's your thoughts about that?
Yeah, when I first started looking for a financial coach, I was frustrated because I had so much emotion as it related to money. I felt like I needed to talk to a psychologist. I felt like I needed to unpack this, you know, thing. I felt inadequate. It was just, I feel, it was just all of these things. And so when I would work with somebody, it was always the numbers, the spreadsheets, and everything like that. So when I wrote this book, I was like, we got to talk about mindset. We got to talk about the things that we've inherited about money. When you talk about relationship to money, I put a section where I describe us writing a letter to money, because the way that, I mean, one of the top reasons people get divorced is because of money, right? So you have a relationship with your significant other, but it's obvious you have a relationship with money. Money tells you how you can dress, where you can go, how much you can give. Like, you are in a relationship with money, whether you acknowledge it or not. And for most Black Americans, that status is, it's complicated, right? So you have to definitely acknowledge that and work through it, whether it was positive, whether it was negative, whether it was an abundance, whether it was lack, whatever that is, you have to acknowledge that. You have to do that work in order to realize how it is influencing you. And then you have to reprogram, right? So anytime you take something out, you have to fill yourself back up. So if you had negative mindsets as it related to money, like one of mine was, I'm not good with money. I'm not good with money. I'm not good with money. I would cry when I would do spreadsheets. And finally, the Lord was like, daughter, you can do complicated things in the workplace all the time. Why is it that you don't feel competent enough to do a basic budget spreadsheet? And it was mindset. And so literally, he started showing me how down to even the level of my brain synapses that I needed to reprogram my thinking, that I needed to stop associating my thoughts with inadequacy as related to money. And then all of a sudden, over time, we started building wealth. And then I'm writing a book about it, and teaching other people. But if I had been stuck in that mindset of I'm not good with money, which was just a lie from the pit of hell, right? Like, that's just the enemy. But whether it's natural or supernatural, you have to adjust, and you have to realize, and you have to speak the word, and you have to understand who you are and what his promises are as it relates to finances, as it relates to abundance, as it relates to, in Proverbs 8, enduring wealth. Because our wealth isn't just supposed to be something we come across, which is why I switched from talking about just income to talking about building wealth. But yeah, when you talk about relationship with money, I can definitely talk about that for a while.
Awesome. That's good. I think about my journey with money. So this is why this conversation was significantly important for me. Because as you talk about your 20s, like my 20s were like total screwed up as it came to money. And before I get into that, I just want to invite you all that are logged in via social media to go to drop some comments in or questions, things of that nature. Go ahead and engage with this conversation if you like. But in my 20s, I just made so many crazy mistakes, Brielle. Like at one point, I had 2 cars for no reason, because I was, early 20s, still living with my mom, and I tried to get a new car, but my credit was jacked up with the car they had, and then my intent was to trade this car in, but I couldn't trade it in, and I ended up being stuck with 2 cars. And then I'm just like, oh, well, I just got 2 cars, and, end up losing both of those cars in the process. Cause I'm like, being young and crazy. But I never, I didn't open up about these situations. Like, I struggled and I made mistake after mistake, but I would hide my struggles rather than having that relationship with it and actually confronting it. And hit it so much that I didn't start to decide to fix it until my early 30s. And at this point, I had accumulated years of financial issues. And even over the last couple of years, just turning 40 this year, still growing from mistakes in my 20s, during that time. So definitely that relationship and trying to transition to that mindset of wealth. But I want to get to that place of wealth. And, because just reading your book and looking through the book, and it was helping me in the process, because my relationship with money is so different now that I'm looking at my credit report at least 2 or 3 times a month. I'm looking at my credit report. I'm looking at the debt. I'm not running from debt collectors now. I was just celebrating about a month ago that The only thing on my credit report is my student loans. This is probably the first time in history
Yes.
and I don't have anything on my credit report other than my student loans. So it's
Yes.
serious for me. So now I'm in this place of wanting to, at this stage of my life at 40, is to develop wealth. And so, you talked about in your book about, different streams of income. You talked about in your book about, stocks and, investing. But with all of that, what's the importance of Black wealth, as it centers around these things
Mm.
that you talk about in your book?
Yeah. So one of the biggest things that bothered me, I will say, right, is that a lot of times we find ourselves in situations where we are protesting and we are asking and we have our hands out, right? And to me, one of the most powerful forms of empowerment is economic empowerment. And so for me, I'm like, we as a culture getting to a place where our wealth, right? Because we always talk about our buying power, right? Leveraging our buying power. We're gonna, pick it this store and do that and do this. And that's amazing. And that is a great strategy. But our wealth can also be a great strategy. And there's such a big disconnect. Like, I don't know if you guys grew up like us, but back in the day, you might see somebody with a little less melanin than us, and they might have, some tissues that were real rough looking, right? And you'd be like, ah, ha, ha, why do they always have rough looking tennis shoes? And as we grow up, I'm like, yo, like a pair of Jordans cost $100 and something, right? And if you have 3, 4, like I have friends who had shoe boxes all around their room of Jordans in a place that might have been rented. You see what I'm saying? And nothing wrong with renting. I talk about that in my book. But if you are spending money on material things that are like depreciating in value, right? Like, so when you buy certain tennis shoes, unless they're collector's items, once you wear them a few times, that $100 and something is gone, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if you instead are putting that money, like let's say you own your home, let's say you're investing in your stock, let's say instead of buying 5 pairs of shoes, you buy 1 pair and then you put the difference into something that is going to appreciate, gain value over time, like real estate or stock or something like that. See, that's the thing that bothered me, was that we, especially as Black millennials, are like, oh yeah, let me get that 6-figure income. But we would get that and we would get a lifestyle of consumption. We would, get the cars, get the trips, get, all of those things. But I was like, man, we're missing it because we weren't building our net worth. That average net worth difference between Black millennials and our white counterparts is drastic. So that just shows that while there are wage gaps, there are income gaps, the wealth gap is even more significant because, as Lauryn Hill says, it's not about what you cop, it's about what you keep. We're getting the money. A lot of us are securing the bag, but we're not keeping it. So it's really about, for us and Black wealth, is transitioning from just having income and gaining money through our jobs, however many figures they are, to really realizing that the measuring stick is net worth. And that's not even a term that we hear a lot in our conversations, right? Like, when I was writing the book, I had people tell me, is that really going to resonate with a Black millennial audience? And I had to think about it. And I was like, no, but that's the point, right? Like, I literally almost changed the name of my book until I was like, you know what? That is the point. We have to make words like personal net worth. We have to make words like our personal balance sheet urban terms, because that's the true measuring stick. It's not just about income and salaries.
Yeah. Yeah, I want to get to that, the Black millennials and that target in a few moments. But one of the things that I started to think about when you were saying that, uh, was just, you talked about the consumption piece, and how we're out here buying the Jordans and stuff like that. And I can remember years ago when I was teaching at and then no, let me even go back before that, because I was one of those kids, especially in high school. I was one of the ones like, ha ha ha, look at your shoes, and even though really my family was,
but their parents was stacking money.
exactly, and I had the nerve. Because, I mean, I had some Nikes, but I wasn't rocking those Jordans or whatever. But I had the nerve, and I guess for me, it was just a point of survival. Like, I'd rather be with the kids that was talking about everybody else rather than, not even taking the time to understand that. Yeah, I didn't even have an understanding of poverty. And actually, my family made us seem like we had more money than what we had, because we would get stuff years after it came out. Like when Nintendo came out, oh nah, you can ask for the Nintendo, but we didn't get that joint until like three years later, when it was like $79.99 or something like that after it came out. And we would get stuff like 3 or 4 years after the fact. But then, as I started to get older and started to see kids do the same thing, and I used to tell them, like, you're focused on these $200 pair of Jordans, and now 200. That's nothing now. Like the Jordans are like $300 or $500 now. Like you're focused on that, and then you got these kids that are not kids of color, that are not Black and brown kids. Their parents are out here investing, out here putting money into the stock market, and we just have no concept. So you can talk about them, but some of their families are set up different. So I'm glad that you brought that up, because that Black wealth is real important, and we really have to have a deeper conversation around consumption. Go ahead, jump in.
And it's not just, I was just gonna say, it's not just a harp on like a pair of shoes or things like that, but think about it, like that teenager being socialized that way grows up, and that becomes a Louis Vuitton bag. When you are older, it becomes the best flat screen, it becomes luxury vehicles, right? All of those things, which are great, but it's about the sequence and pace in which you acquire them, right? If you don't necessarily have, your 401k all the way together, and you're not maxing out your 401k investments, and driving a luxury car and carrying a luxury bag should not be the order. If you're driving, luxury vehicles and carrying luxury bags, and you don't have anything set aside for your kids' college fund, it's just the order and the pace at which we are investing in different types of assets. And it's making sure that the assets that appreciate come first. And then we can buy whatever we want to buy, but just make sure that you cover your bases first. And so I think it's just that high school cultural mentality that we just end up adopting as we get older.
Yeah. And thanks for saying that, because I know there's somebody watching right now. They're like, oh my gosh, what you saying? I can't have what I want. I can't have nice things. I can't buy Jordans. What you trying to say? I'm not supposed to be out here looking like a Bama or something. No, we ain't saying that. But it's that order. It's definitely that order. So thanks for a highlight of that. So I want to ask you this.
Yeah, no problem.
There may be some people who are watching right now. There may be some people that go back and watch the replay, and they're at a place financially where they're like, you know what, Brielle, I hear what you're saying, but my credit is jacked up. I ain't got no savings. If you just saw my credit report, and my debt is like sky high. I don't know where to start. Like, this sounds good, but how would you advise people to get started in confronting, tackling on, and developing this relationship with money?
Yeah, so I would say, to me, I was just working on my own on an Instagram post, and I say budget builds wealth. Okay, budget build wealth. So you have to start with a baseline budget and identify every line item that you have. And it may seem corny, it may seem whatever, and you got to figure out, okay, are you in this situation because you have an income problem, or because you have a spending problem? Or is it a combination of both? But you have to realize, by creating a budget and looking at your expenses, whether it is your behaviors and your habits that are getting you there, or is it your income that is creating that situation? So to me, that is number one. Number two is typically, especially if you're in debt, then you have to be creative about creating multiple streams of income. So whether it's an additional part-time job, whether it is, a side hustle, whether it is participating in direct sales or multi-level marketing, you have to diversify your income. Because a lot of times when people get into debt, it's because they relied on one source of income. And that's just not okay, especially not for Black Americans, because the phrase, last hired, first fired, like we're more likely, like the pandemic has disproportionately impacted us. So you have to have multiple streams of income. Number three is you have to have an emergency fund, right? So you may have to pare things down, looking at your situation, right? Now, if you're in a negative cash flow situation, meaning you don't have enough income, you've pared it down, it's not your habit, it's probably going to be a little bit tough at first to build your $1,000. But that in that case, you might need to sell some things. You might need to think of a pop-up shop. Like, you just have to hustle hard to get that $1,000 baseline emergency fund in place so that you are no longer going into debt. See, at some point, you have to make a decision to do something differently than what you've done before in order to change your situation. So I would start with the budget and work your way from there. Is it habits or is it income? If it's income, you need to get some multiple income streams, and then you need to also save that baseline 1,000 by any means necessary.
Yeah, Brielle, and that requires major sacrifice, and it requires major sacrifice and commitment. Again, I want to go back to another story. I probably would have been more embarrassed to share this some years ago, but throughout my mid-30s, because I was trying to recover, and trying to get out my financial hole, I was trying to figure out where to start, and for years. Of even living on my own and staying by myself, like I had to make a decision that I had to move in and rent a room from somebody. And I literally did this for 6 years throughout my mid 30s of having to save up some money and, living in this small space and working a part-time job. Shout out to Inner Solutions, which was a concierge agency. I literally worked at Inner Solutions for 3 to 3.5 years of doing concierge work on the weekend and just having to rebuild my life financially. And I told myself that I wasn't going to move until I was in position to buy a house, because I did not want to go back to renting again. I said I wanted to continue to confront, and it takes a major sacrifice, because often most of us, we just like, God, I need you to send me some money. God, I need you to open up the windows of heaven and pour me out a blessing. Like, God, I need you to can you help me hit the lotto? Some of us, we ask God to help us hit the lotto and stuff like that. So we be asking God to do major stuff in our life without doing the work and the sacrifice. I'm glad you brought that up, because it's definitely, it requires a sacrifice. It requires us, being creative and doing those things. So thanks for lifting that up. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is Keep It Real Friday. So I'm just gonna let y'all know my apologies. My phone was about to die, so I had to run to my car real quick.
It's all good. No judgment here. No judgment.
Scenery.
No judgment at all. Beverly Sanders says this is good stuff. TT Lawson went back and says budget fulfills wealth. Thanks for dropping some comments here. So again, if you're just tuning in, my guest this evening is Brielle Mabrey, good friend of mine through the years. Going back a long time, and she's an entrepreneur. She's now an author, and we're talking about her book that she's releasing this Sunday, the 7-Figure Net Worth. And so I want to encourage you all on Sunday when that drops on Amazon. Y'all go to Amazon, y'all buy this book. I've already had the opportunity to read the book, and it's really good. Gives you really practical steps into, restructuring your life financially, even for those who are in a good place. I feel like I'm in a good place, but I feel like I learned a lot, in some areas that I want to improve in. But as we move on to the next part of this discussion, Brielle, I want to ask you, your book is targeted towards Black millennials. And I think this is a very important age group, because a lot of our Black millennials, like yourself, want to become entrepreneurs. They want to, get to that place where, because, in our faces on social media and the media, we just see people out here living it up and, doing the daggone thing. People are popping up on social media, getting these streams of income and blowing up in certain ways. And, we're trying to look for that, some may be looking for that quick, easy way to become a millionaire or whatever like that. But what advice would you give to the aspiring millennial who desires to be wealthy, who desires to be an entrepreneur? And what mistakes do you suggest that they avoid?
Woo, okay. All right. So for Black millennials that want to be wealthy, I think the number one thing is discipline. It's all about having disciplined mindsets, disciplined habits. That is number one, right? Because like you said, it takes sacrifice. So a little bit about our personal, my husband and I's story is that while I made some really good decisions in my 20s, as I shared, I kind of regressed a little bit. And so when I got my condo, I had a mortgage, and I talk about this in the book. Well, I was 23 with a mortgage. My friends weren't 23 with a mortgage. So when it was time to go out to eat, when it was time to take a vacation, when it was time, to get, the new outfit for a party, I wasn't saying no. I should have been. I was instead saying yes and swiping a credit card. So the one thing that you have to learn is to adjust your lifestyle to build wealth. You have to adjust your lifestyle to build wealth, because your income is it's the tool that you're going to use, right? Every dollar that comes into your hands is a tool to build wealth. And so you have to decide, okay, now I have this dollar. What am I going to do with it? Am I going to send it away from me, or am I going to have it work for me? And a lot of times it just takes that discipline of making the decisions that you need. So between student loans and credit card debt, my husband and I were in $120,000 worth of debt. And so we did a lot of creative things to get out of debt. We like, I learned to show up to people's dinner parties, and I would just get an appetizer or eat before. We learned how to coupon. There's a lot of things that you can do to adjust your lifestyle. And it doesn't mean always deprivation. It just means indulging a little bit differently, right? Like, I love thrift stores. I love jewelry. I got these though from the dollar store, right? So it's just learning.
Oh, I think we might have lost Brielle. I don't know if I see you. I'm not sure if you can hear me. We lost you for a second, Brielle. I think you're on mute. Let me see if I can take you. Okay. Well, while we're waiting for Brielle to rejoin us in just a moment, she might be having some signal issues. But that whole, making sacrifices. And, for me, it's, she talked about couponing. She talked about going to the thrift store. I know a part of my personal journey lately has been, like, I'm not ashamed to be a couponer, like a black man, couponer. I will take my coupons to the store and I will pull them out. Some of y'all who know me, will see my post on Facebook about couponing. And I have gone to the grocery store and got like 8 boxes of cereal for like $5 and things of that nature. And just finding ways to have discipline, because as I shared a few moments ago, in having discipline, yeah, TT Lawson said that coupon ministry is real. Yes, the coupon ministry is real. But I learned to develop this discipline, during my time of sacrifice, and developing that discipline during my time of sacrifice. I had to make a decision for a few years. Okay, I'm not going to stop eating out as much. I had to make a decision for a few years that, I can park 15 minutes away from my job and not pay $8 to $10 of parking every day. So I had to make some decisions along the way that, if I really want to reestablish my life financially, that I'm gonna have to do some things differently. And if it means that I gotta walk 15 minutes in the cold, I got a coat, but I'm not gonna pay that $8 to $10 parking every day. I don't know if my boy Andre watching, me and my boy Andre that works at my organization with me, but we'll be famous. We's like, nah, we'll make that walk, early in the morning, or whatever it takes, but it takes sacrifice. So Brielle, I don't know if you can hear me now. I know we lost you for a second.
I can hear you.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
can you hear me?
You were talking about the couponing and some of the other sacrifices, the appetizers. I like you to go back into that if you would.
Yeah, so it's just about a lifestyle change, and I love what you said. Thomas, about your friend that you for that. I think the other thing to talk about is accountability, right? Like, and being open about your goals, right? So when people know, listen, I'm in debt and I need to pay off debt, or listen, I need to set up my kids' college fund, so I can't do X, Y, or Z. I think that it's that shame that we have to stop putting onto one another. Because when you look at the aggregate statistics for Black folks in America, we're in debt. Most of us are in debt, unfortunately. So it's more the norm than it's not the norm. Most of us have student loans, right? Or have had student loans at some point. So talking about these things, making it mainstream to say, listen, I can't do X, Y, or Z, right? Or having friends that encourage you, because a lot of times we're all just trying to keep up with each other. And maybe we all need to go, instead of going out to eat, we need to all go get some coupons and make dinner at home and still have an amazing time. Because there's just different ways to do things where you don't lose the quality of life. You don't lose the quality of the experience. You just think through it like, no, I need to use this dollar towards debt. I need to use this dollar towards investment. So if I use this $1 towards, if I have $2, let me use this $1 towards entertainment. Let me use this $1 towards debt, instead of just using that $2 towards entertainment. And so a lot of times it's just rethinking through that mindset. So, in addition to that, you said about Black millennials and entrepreneurship. So, now is definitely the time. There are so many tools out there and so many third-party platforms like Fiverr or Upwork that you can leverage in order to build your business. I remember, as I said before, I'm a serial entrepreneur. So I quit a six-figure job working at a law firm probably now 7 years ago, and it was a lot tougher to start a business. You could still do it, like setting up your LLC and doing different things. Well, recently when I was setting up the business to support financial coaching for this book, there was so many platforms out there. Like, the websites were so much easier. The platforms to set up your LLC, like Zen Business, was so much easier. Like, there's just so many things out there now that allow you to be able to set up your business. So the thing that I would say is that just start now. Whatever it is, take that first step. Google how to start a business, what paperwork you need, whatever it is. Talk to other people about it. People who you know are entrepreneurs, ask them for informational interviews. But it really is like when it comes to business, it's like the journey of 1,000 miles starts with one step. And I do business coaching as well, so I don't want to go too far into all of the steps and the components. But honestly, it's really just like, okay, starting, take that step, figure out what you're really good at. And there's actually exercise I have in my book about multiple income streams. What are you really good at that you find easy that other people would pay you for? Thomas mentioned the concierge service that he participated in for a certain amount of time. Sometimes it may be doing hair, and that may be something you pick up, doing on the weekends. Whatever it is, for me, I realized that people were always talking to me about business. And so I started, although I'm not taking any clients right now for that because I'm focused on personal finance. I realized that I could do business coaching and get paid for it. So just think about your skill sets, what you're really good at, what comes naturally to you that other people would pay for. My daughter loves dogs. She's 8, so she wants to start a dog walking business. So just figure out the things that you're really good at and that other people would pay you for. Google how to start a business, create timelines for yourself, and create accountability. Thomas and I almost were talking about that right before he got on about some goals he had. So I always believe, right, that you got to tell some people that are going to hold your feet to the fire and create goals for yourself. If it's, in the next 2 weeks, I'm going to identify the idea I had, the concept. I'm going to get it really, really clear. 2 weeks after that, I'm going to figure out the steps I need to create the business infrastructure. What do I need to file? What, business structure do I need to have? 2 weeks after that, I'm going to do that and tell somebody, because you definitely need some people that are going to hold you to that, whether it's personal finance, business coaching, entrepreneurship, whatever. Accountability and discipline are definitely going to be the key.
Yeah. Yeah. And if I could add to that, telling the right people and discerning who to tell. Because the one mistake I have made was two things in that is one, and this is my encouragement to all of you based on what Brielle just said, stop giving away your gift for free. Because we have a tendency to, we have that gift to make additional money. And we give it away for free, and we just keep giving away. And then, but we talk about this is what we want to do. But then sometimes if we put that out in the atmosphere too much, then people will take our idea and start to, do what we said we wanted to do all along. And then we get mad, like how they start my dream, and I've done that in the past. And, and so what I've learned is to be strategic and, people who, have my best interest at heart to share that. And, as far as that accountability is concerned. My last question, Brielle, for you is, as we are preparing for your book launch on Sunday, we want to encourage people to go out there on Amazon and get your book. I'm just going to share my screen real quick. Y'all go out there and get the 7-Figure Net Worth on Sunday. Y'all look for this book. It's an awesome book. It's helping me and looking at some areas that I want to get into as far as investing, looking at my credit. I told y'all in the beginning of the conversation, I'd be looking at my credit like 3 or 4 times a week, a month sometimes. So definitely look into picking up this book and learning more about how to have a better relationship with your money, building wealth, and not just building. And, and I want to take the extra mile and say, not just building wealth for yourself, but so that we can build wealth. So we're not becoming the privilege like that is hoarding power and hoarding wealth from us, but that we would be able to also gain wealth so that we can continue to empower those in our community, and so that we can teach Black and brown individuals to reacquire the wealth that has been taken from us. But my last question to you: if persons are to go to Amazon on Sunday and buy this book, what are they getting from this book?
Yeah, so let me tell you, I put my everything in this book. You know how we say when someone says they put their foot in it? Like if this was macaroni cheese at Thanksgiving dinner, I put my foot in it, okay? It is jammed packed. So there are worksheets that are going to help you literally apply what I say. There's relatable stories that give you a narrative that, give you a story to follow along. I talk about a couple people named Sean and Shauna. You get to know them and their journey. I put actionable steps that you can take. Next time we talk about student loans. We talk about how to review your investment reports. We talk about credit scores, like Thomas said. Let me see, what else? We talk about harmful attitudes. I'm looking at the back of the book as it relates to money. We talk about tips and tricks for insurance, for savings, for budgeting. The Bible, we talk about biblical perspectives on wealth, abundance, and stewardship. I don't know how all of this got in here for 250 pages, but let me tell you, it is it is a lot. And when I've heard the feedback from early readers, it's amazing because what resonates is a little bit different, right? Because, oh, I love that. Her book is delicious to one's financial. Girl, don't get me hype in here. Yes, it is. My goal in writing this book was I didn't see as many intermediate strategies for wealth, right? So I wanted something that went all the way from the basics, but also covered intermediate strategies like self-banking and infinite banking and how to leverage insurance proactively. So I'll just say there's a lot in there, and there's something for everybody, no matter what your background is. My story happens to be one from poverty, but people who grew up rich and bougie, or broke and bougie, or whatever your flavor was, there is something in here for you. So yeah, hopefully that answers your question.
Oh yeah, most definitely. Um, Thank you, Brielle. I want you all to follow Brielle on IG at Wisdom Then Wealth, so that you can keep engaged with what she has going on. Just a lot of wisdom, a lot of that we just received just from this just this less than an hour conversation that you have shared with us. And thank you for opening up about your journey. You all go out on Amazon and buy her book, and give her a great review, because it is a great book, and it's it's solid, all that what she said that she has to offer in the book. And especially things that we just don't like to talk about in the Black community, as far as our credit scores. Lord Jesus, I don't even, I barely want to talk about my credit score right now, but it's just things that we need to just confront and just be honest about, and and just not wanting this to be a dream, but making this a reality. And I believe Brielle's book will help this make it a reality for you, as I'm looking forward to this book making it a reality for me. I just brought the Kindle copy. I'm gonna buy a hard copy. I suggest you do the same, or buy 2 books and be a blessing to somebody else that that may be struggling with this relationship with money. And I just want to say thank you, Brielle, for joining us. I know you have another function that you have this evening, but you sacrificed this time to have this conversation, so I appreciate it. And hopefully we can get connected again. I have another idea about engaging some millennials, and we'll talk about that at a later date. But just
Okay.
thank you for this conversation, and I'm sure that you have helped somebody and
Yeah.
who's watching, and I know somebody who goes back and watches this, that they will be blessed by this. So.
Amen. Well, that is definitely the goal. So, congratulations to you and your progress. Definitely keep me posted. And I appreciate your transparency too. And just hearing your transparency encourages me, because that's the point, is that these are conversations that we need to have. So, amen.
Amen. Amen. Well, y'all keep following us at Keep It Real Fridays. Our website, if you want to revisit this conversation, you can find us on YouTube at KIR Fridays, or Google my name. These conversations are there. This will be uploaded to my website, www.keepitrealfridays.com. Before it shifts next year, the website will be a little bit different as I'm going through my own entrepreneurial shift. But you can find this conversation on keepitrealfridays.com starting tomorrow. We won't have any more Keep It Real Fridays for the rest of this year. Our next one will be on the first Friday in January, but you can catch some replays the next couple of Fridays. But thank you again, Brielle. Thank you for those who are watching. Continue to just follow her wisdom, then wealth on IG. God bless you all. You all have a blessed one, and we'll reconvene back in January. Thank you again, Brielle.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.